Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We need to have some points about research paper and what are the main points we could discuss. I have uploaded two Word files talking about research paper. The first one was on introduction, which tells us what is research, what is the value of research, and what are the reasons of writing only some introductions to have an idea about why do we do research. And I also mentioned how many types of research papers we can talk about, and what are the steps in writing a research paper. If you go back to these two files, you will find at the end of the file what are the steps in writing research paper. The first one I mentioned is choosing and narrowing a topic, which means that you cannot talk about a broad and very wide topics. For example, talking about feminism or talking about linguistics in general. No, you need to be specific. So this is one of the processes we undergo when we write research papers, which we call it narrowing down. You cannot write. You might say like literature or linguistics, but then you need to be more specific, like fiction, like novel or drama or play. Or for example, in linguistics, you need to talk about semantics, syntax, about discourse analysis. So this is what we call the narrowing down process. When we talk, the next step, we need to identify sources using, according to the book, which we were supposed to deal with. The book talks about the processes of the 70s and the 60s of the last century, which goes to the library and you take a card and you write the numbers of these books. Now we don't need to do these processes. Only you just need to have a laptop or a computer and log into the internet. Just Google the sources. You will find as many as you need. So when we try to talk about a kind of a topic, we just go to Google Scholar, for example, or Google in general, and ask about the availability of sources, about has this topic been dealt with before, or it is not filled yet. So this is what we normally do now in 21st century. Then we go into a process which is called gathering support. You evaluate the usefulness of the books and articles you locate, collect support material from them, and develop a tentative outline of the paper. Which means, after you decide the topic, you check that it is not done, and you check that there are enough source material that could help you to deal with this topic. Then you could go through these topics, have a look, identify the paragraphs you need, the material you can find in these books that could support your claim. Then you move to another process, which is writing the paper. You write and revise your paper, integrating material, the sources you found, you mix it with your own claims and your own theories in order to produce a paper. And then the final last step, the fifth step, preparing the paper in final form. You put the paper in its final shape, paying attention, of course, to the format conventions and like the documentation, like the styles of writing, and doing some paraphrasing, some editing in order to make it, and preparing notes and bibliography at the end of your process of writing. So these are in general 5 steps we need to discuss. Later, the next file I talked about is I did I did want to show you something about sorry, the major parts of a paper. What do we do when we want to write a paper? First thing you need to have an idea about is outline. What is an outline? Outline is a plan you set in order to follow step by step in order to write your own paper. So any outline for any research paper should include certain steps. For example, I am writing a paper about, let's say, Charles Dickens or Hard Times or the Scarlet Letter, any kind of story. So the first thing I should think about is abstract. Some scholars decide to write the abstract after they finish the whole work. And some scholars say that abstract could be written and then revised after you write the abstract. So abstract is a plan for you to conduct your work, in which you should include some information like the book you're gonna work on, the author's name, the problem of the paper, the objectives of the paper. What do you need? The problem is why you are doing this research. There is a problem you need to fix in this research. For example, the Scarlet Letter symbolism, for example, has not been dealt with earlier, and no scholar has shed light on the significance of the prison door, of the rust on the iron spikes of the prison door, the cemetery, the rose bush. These items symbolize certain meanings, and no scholar, no writer has dealt with these things yet. So I want to tackle these things. The objective, I aim to explore the topic. I intend to identify these symbols and refer to their significance. This what we call objectives. And then we need to shed light on significance of the paper. Is your paper worthy of doing? Normally, on the undergrad level, the papers are not highly significant because they focus on topics that have been dealt with before. They just repeat, just collect some information from here and there, and then compile it into 5-6 pages and present it as a paper. And this is incorrect. If we want to be real researchers, we need to research in a good way, and we need to research a material that have not been dealt with before, something new, something original. I have done this with 2 or 3 of my